Okay, we're going to give it one more minute and we'll start at 102. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Linda Lenore, and I'm with the University Career Center, the main career center at the university. I am here as a part of Professional Development Month for the Alumni Association. So I do hope that you've had a chance to take part of some of the events that have already taken place and that you see all of the upcoming programs that are in store for you. I am going to take myself off of video so that I can proceed with talking with you about mastering the master resume. And if there are questions, you can wait to the end, or if you'd like to add one or two, my colleague and I can look at those and answer them in turn, okay? Okay, so as I said, I'm going to be talking with you today about mastering the master resume. There's a lot that I'm going to go through very quickly. I'm going to go through some of the basics of a resume, what's in a resume overall, what the final resume should look like. Overall, we do know that that's a one-page, error-free, concise, and attractive outline of relevant, keyword relevant experience, skills, and accomplishments, and your academic credentials. You write a resume with the reader in mind. So you make sure that what you're doing is focusing on the person who is getting to know you. It's your letter of introduction. That's what your resume is. It is personalized to reflect your strengths, your interests, and your capabilities for a particular position. And it is tailored or customized to each position. And that is the reason why you're looking at particular capabilities for this specific position. Always use action verbs whenever you can, because that helps an individual who's reading it to understand what actions you have taken in your positions. And bulleted points. Please stay away from complete sentences, no paragraphs, all right? Because you're trying to make things pop. You want it to be right in front of you. And so that's where bullet points help to direct the eye. And stay away from personal pronouns. No me or my or I. Go straight to what the action was. If you have references, do make sure you do have them prepared, but have them on a separate sheet so that when you are later asked for those references, you've already reached out to these individuals and they know what you're doing, and they know where you are at this time, and you know their correct information in case they've moved into other positions. But that's on a separate sheet of paper. It is not something that you put on your resume. So overall, please make sure you have contact information. Now, what's happened over the last couple of years is people have started taking the street address out. Some people are keeping out the city and state, but you definitely want to be able to be contacted. So make sure you have in there your email address, your cell phone. If you have a LinkedIn account, and you should, be sure to put that URL in there so they can reach you. Now, an objective. I will tell you, I am an advocate for an objective, if only while you are creating a resume. Whether you keep it in there or not is up to you. But I'm going to talk with you from the point of view of having an objective, because it's going to identify what it is that you're looking to do or to develop with a particular company. And it helps you to later define what you want to include. Education, if you are a relatively new graduate within the past 2 years, you want to be able to include in there some of your relevant classes, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Your experiences are going to be paid and unpaid, because that can be in-class experience, it can be out-class, it can be volunteer experiences, and your accomplishments. Extracurricular is exactly as it always has been. Those things that you're doing outside of your job or your classroom. Sometimes we forget the fact that you might be volunteering to help with the Boys and Girls Club, with the baseball game or something. But keep those in there. It just shows that you are active outside of just looking for a job, which of course is your priority. And your skills, technical and soft skills that are relevant to the position. Now, that's listed here at the bottom, But believe me, that's one of the things that will most likely go to the top. But still, these are the areas that you need to be sure to include in the anatomy of a resume. So let's look at that. So here's your header. So right away, that's who you are and how you can be reached. There's your objective that you're looking for an internship and you want to use your interpersonal skills. Um, and let me tell you a little bit about that objective. An objective gives you clarity for what you're seeking. It helps you to focus your resume. You can do this by saying you are applying for a particular position. You can say you are looking for a position using specific skills, that you're looking for employment because you're interested in a particular employer or industry, or any combination of these. Let me give you some examples. And this is something that actually came from one of our handshake positions. So the position title was implementation consultant. So you could say that your objective is implementation consultant. You would put that on your resume because that employer may have 5, 6, 10 different kinds of positions that they're recruiting for. And you want them to know right up front, you are looking for the implementation consultant consideration. All right. You can also say that you want that position using specific skills. And there it is, implementation consultant using excellent leadership, communication, and creative skills in a team environment. Now here you're going to put the actual company, implementation consultant using excellent leadership, communication, and creative skills in a team environment with Fast Enterprise LLC. Here's another example, a public relations associate. Once again, public relations associate using strong editing and marketing skills. Public relations associate using strong editing and marketing skills with an interest in the medical industry. So as you can tell, that is what's going to help to determine what do you put into the rest of your resume. So that's the objective. In terms of the anatomy. As we look at the education, you're looking at relevant education. Relevant meaning what is it you have done that is relevant to that objective. If it has nothing to do with it, don't waste your time and space on your resume to talk about things that do not relate. You want to have relevant stuff up top, and you can always have the other work experiences. Many of us, you have these jobs that help you pay your bills. Those are still work experiences, but we're going to focus on what is relevant to the position that you're trying to get. That relevant experience, especially for recent graduates, can include any of these: internships, service or volunteer work, class projects. And with the class projects, it's the name of the course. You don't put down the call numbers because that means nothing to most readers, but the name of the course, the title of the course, what role you had, what results did you have? Was there a paper? Was there a PowerPoint? Were you the team leader? Were you a member of the team? Did you all have a chance to present at a conference? So a class project is something especially that our new graduates tend to forget that they have. So you're going to be asked later on to really start to think back on those class projects that you've had over the last 2 years or so before you graduated. Athletics, for those of you who are involved in intramurals or a club, if you're a member of a student organization, once again, you can be a member, you can be a leader, but if you have some affiliation, and of course, any research that you've done, what course or who was the professor? What were some of the results? What did you do? Let's look at an idea of how that can be done. When you're writing up your experiences, the tips are to include keywords from the job description. So most employers are going to use an ATS, which is an applicant tracking system, to determine the keywords. I like using something called TagCrowd, TAGCROWD.com, or ChatGPT, or other kinds of AI. What I love about TagCrowd is that you can copy and paste the job description and click on it, and it'll give you the top keywords in there that you need to focus on. A part of focusing on those keywords is that you might be using the word student, that you work with a number of students, but they're talking about working with a number of subjects or subject or clients. So you might need to sometimes just change a word or two to speak the language of the employer that you are aspiring to work with. And Tag Crowd can help you to identify those relevant words. And for me, I have consistently found that to be one of the quickest, most relevant ways for you to be able to get that information. And of course, ChatGPT is always there to help give you some guidance, as is there a great list of other kinds of AI that you might be able to use. But always remember, once you use AI, it's only a tool. It should not be the end product of what you use. You're going to use strong action verbs, and I see Sharina has put in our chat some of the ways that you can identify those strong action verbs and the ones that you might use in telling about your experiences. Try to avoid those vague verbs like you helped or you assisted. There's so many more that you can use that could be more definitive. Be sure to group your related experiences together. Once again, related to what? Related to that objective for this specific, targeted, focused on employer or position. Group those experiences together. And be specific, okay? Make sure that you are specific. Oops, I'm sorry. And concise. So avoid a lot of fluff and a lot of cliches. One thing you might hear about quite often is something called SHIP, SHIP, which is one way to take an experience and to give it credibility. S is to start with an action verb. H, highlight your achievements, the measurable results, the skills you learned and or used. I, be sure to include tailored statements. Keyword there is tailored. And P, provide quantitative data whenever you can, because that helps somebody know that you were able to achieve 60%, or you served 5,000 people, or you worked with $20,000. Those numbers are really terrific when you're trying to sell yourself. Let's look at how that basically shows up in an experience statement. So, which is more impressive? Here's one that somebody said that they were an RA in September. Okay. What's more impressive, saying that or where they were responsible for residents in the hall, they planned programs? Here's another way. First of all, they spelled out the word because not everybody's going to know what an RA is. So they spelled out resident assistant. They've put the dates, as you should with most dates, always to the far right. And they've put the University of Maryland NAICS. The most important thing here is that the person was a resident assistant. And then as you go about wanting to describe this, here you're talking about counseled 60 residents on academic, transition, and social issues. You planned 8 educational programs, etc. And keep in mind, when it's a 1 digit, you spell the number out. When it's more than 1 digit, you do write the full number. And here is where they mentioned the budget. They advise the council in developing and managing a $2,000 budget. And once again, designed and presented 2 sessions. So which one is more impressive? I think if you'll agree with me that the bottom one's a little bit more impressive than that top one. Now, one resource that I really like a lot because they give terrific articles of advice is the Muse. The Muse has come up with 5 different ways of showing how you can take one bullet and change it accordingly. So if you have on here the original bullet saying, developed a framework for globalization initiative, improve the sharing of institutional knowledge. That was the bullet. If you want to show impact, here's another way of saying it. To show impact, I'm sorry, to show impact, you're going to have it written out a little bit more. Developed a framework for a company-wide globalization initiative to improve the sharing of institutional knowledge, improving efficiency of weekly communication, and eliminating 50% of all staff meetings. Okay. Another way is if you want to show teamwork using that same bullet, you could use collaborated on a team of four to investigate existing business communication practices in order to develop a framework for knowledge dissemination to support the company's new globalization initiative. Effective communication, it gets a little bit a different slant. Liaised with senior leadership and sought feedback and input during the development of a framework that improves efficiency of company-wide communication, ultimately cutting unnecessary all staff meetings by 50%. That same bullet to talk about how you worked independently. I think you can read this, but it says managed implementation and deployment of company-wide wiki as part of an effort to improve communication across departments, leading to a sharp reduction of unnecessary all-staff meetings. And if you want to show motivation, initiated the development of a framework to improve the efficiency of company-wide communication after a group analysis of current business communication practices suggested areas of possible improvement. Each of them, depending on the position that you're applying to, has given you a way to not just tweak, but to really elaborate on what it is that you did that resonates with the position that you're applying for. So keep that in mind at all times that you're trying to see what is it that this employer is seeking and how might I change what I'm saying depending on that position. Other sections that you might have on a regular resume include that technical skills part, the SPSS software, the SATA data analysis and statistical software, MATLAB, and even social media. If you know social media, put it on there. Don't take for granted that it's not relevant because it often comes about somewhere in there, including if you're knowledgeable in the use of AI. You can also have lab skills, especially for those of you in the science areas, the PCR-based cloning, NMR and IR spectroscopy, programming skills, Java, C++, HTML, Python, language skills, and your how much you know, whether it's relevant or not. Put it on for your master resume that we're going to talk about and other certifications that you might have. If you've taken classes, additional certifications through LinkedIn Learning or through Coursera or other MOOCs, MOOCs or CPR training, any of those kinds of certifications, be sure to gather that information and have that as additional certifications that you might have in that section. So now that we have covered the basics of a targeted resume, how do we grow that master resume? Typically, the master resume is where you go to create the targeted one. It often evolves from the task of resume writing. So the document contains a complete list of all your experiences, all your accomplishments, skills, certifications, volunteer work, etc., that you may wish to spotlight in a tailored resume. It's used as a reservoir or a well that contains a record of all relevant information that you have done from which you can pick and choose for job targeting. You are always adding to it. It will be more than one page. So when I mention on there, whether you have a particular language like Spanish, you're going to put it on there. But if it's not relevant, you might not be putting that on your tailored resume unless they're looking for somebody who is bilingual in Spanish. So a master resume is going to say, these are all the things that I've ever thought about that I need to be able to add to this. The steps in your master resume include evaluating your career goals, using your most recent resume for reference, adding more bullet points than you normally would, list all of your top skills, and include additional sections. For instance, your professional memberships. If you are a member of a professional association, if you have a certification, if you received an award, if you're involved in a project, it might be even a neighborhood project that you've done, or an award from the community or from your place of worship. Update that resume, that master resume regularly. And why should you have the master resume? Because it's going to save time. The bulk of the work has already been done. You've already gathered who you are and all that you could bring to any job. It enables a high level of customization. You can pull and pick and choose. You can polish and showcase the qualities that you want a prospective employer to see. A master resume is going to reveal trends in your career progression. It's going to give you insight into your unique value proposition to employers. And it aids in goal setting by forcing you to analyze your accomplishments and their timeline. So, what have you been doing? Have you been doing things that are building and building and building, or are you starting to move in other directions? So, it's going to give you an idea as to what you've done. To create the master resume, it is a complete record of all your previous experience. It can be as long as you want it to be. And when applying for a job, you're only going to pull out the most relevant experiences for a one-page resume. That is the crazy thing about this, because once you start writing, you're going to say, well, gee whiz, I've got 5 pages. Yeah, you have 5 pages. And from those 5 pages, you can pull that is what most relevant. Okay. Some common pitfalls is not starting your bulleted points with an action verb, using the same verb many times, using vague verbs, having typos. You have no idea. And when I can tell you, a person in the Career Center, I see it all the time, typos, because suddenly, it happens. You have a typo, you have a spelling or a grammatical error. Um, Sometimes it's too small, it's hard to read, the print is small, or it's very sparse, it's very generic. So make sure you describe your experience, share your details. And if you're using personal pronouns, take them out. No I, my, or mine. And remember, you should always save your as a PDF prior to emailing. If you don't, that is a pitfall because very often what can happen is you can send something, and if it's not in a PDF, it can get lost. A PDF, at least everything will not get taken off kilter with the way it's supposed to look. Finally, put your best foot forward. Customize all your documents. Make sure you target, that you focus, that you organize the relevant experiences under customized headings. Use keywords from the job description. Address the qualifications for the job. Reflect on all of your experience that's relevant and the transferable skills that you have. Keep in mind that perfection is the standard. So that's basically what I have for what I look at when I'm thinking about come to me, when I think about a master resume, is taking the time, here we go, taking the time to put yourself out there so that others can understand this. I have put some thought into this resume. One size does not fit all. Even the same title within a different company is going to be asking for different skills. So you have to really tailor your resume. A master resume gives you the beginning point for how you can now pull from that and identify other things. One thing that I've noticed in talking with other um, alumni is that there's a tendency to forget, that I mentioned earlier on, all that you've done in the classroom. And in the classroom is where you have these projects, and these projects are the ones that, are really relevant to the outside world because it's there that they can say, oh, well, there's somebody from the University of Maryland who has had recent exposure to a particular area of concentration, and I'd love to get their insight. So look at what you've done, and some of you are always doing projects just by nature of your major. Others, you might say, I don't have any projects. Believe me, you've had at least one. And so you need to think about those projects, write them up, give them as much attention as you can, make it as long as it needs to be. And then when you're writing for that particular job, that's when you're going to tailor it. But it behooves you to take the time and to always add to that master resume, even as you go through on your short-term volunteer or part-time jobs. Be sure to add those into that master resume because at any point in time, there might be something there skill-wise or experience-wise that you want to be sure to sell when you're applying for a very specific job. So that's what I have to offer to you today. I hope this has been helpful. And I don't know, Sharina, do I have any questions in there, or does anybody have one they'd like to give? Hi, Malika.
I
We
just
do
sent a picture of you to Keisha. Hi.
I
have.
have to share with you the thing that happens with being in the Career Center for a while. Malika's sister Keisha worked in our office moons ago as a career assistant. And it's been
I
working at Georgetown and at the School of Business and doing lots of wonderful things. Tell her I said hi.
I will.
But yeah, other
we
people that
have a
might have
question. We have
any
a question in
questions?
the chat. It
Okay,
says from Christina, if you don't have a lot of paid job experience, would it be helpful to show how you used leadership skills in a social organization on your resume? Not from college, but current social organizations.
absolutely. And I'm glad that you asked that question because once some kids get a chance to, when they're a student, they get involved in classes and they do all kinds of experiences in classes. But then when they leave campus, others are like, now is when I'm starting to, do things for my church or do things for my community center or for, you know, to give back. There's so many ways to give back. And so if you are involved in that, by all means, I think about some of the people that I know in the organizations they are involved in. One of them I've heard about is called the 12 Days of Christmas, which is a way of a group of people have gotten together and they, gather, whatever in order to give back to the community coats and food that's of need for children. So, there's always a group of people somewhere that's in need of your volunteerism. So absolutely. Think about if you are doing something, put it down, write it up, describe it. Okay. And if you haven't done anything, look around. I know that a lot of times with if you were to look at your local newspapers, you might find news journals basically, or look at the Maryland State Employment Services. They might have in their volunteer opportunities, but seek them out because there are many people in need of your expertise, and just sometimes you just need an extra person to help them to distribute food, to help to shovel, to help to take care of the elderly, or to work with helping them to get a website online. Um, so find ways in which you can participate because it'll make a big difference to them as well as to you. And that becomes something you can write up because as you're looking for a job, very often the question's going to come, what have you been doing? And you want to be able to say, well, I have been involved with this and I've been involved with that. Thank you. Once again, Sharina's put that in there for Maryland.gov has a list of different kinds of opportunities that are out there. Great
We have another
question.
question too. What is the best way to handle and address or not address gaps in employment?
Say that again, the address or not address.
To address or not address gaps in employment.
Well, that's where right now you're going to try to fill the gap, okay, by as much as you can by volunteering. For those gaps that have already happened, they have happened. And so that's why I like a chronological, but I like to set the chronological in terms of relevant and other experiences and showcase skills or showcase interests. And that way it takes the light off of the chronology of everything. Most resumes, when you go to it, like I said, it's going to be a one pager. Most resumes are going to get 15, maybe 20 seconds. So you want to make sure the important stuff is up front. So if you have a scattered history, take that master resume, look at the job you're applying to. And then you're going to have, as I said, it's going to be called relevant experience. Or if you don't have experience, relevant skills. And that's where you're going to put in the skills that you have. And once again, think back to when you were in school. Think back to those places where you were developing those skills, because that can be, what you have been doing. If you haven't been doing anything, then I say to you, it's never too late. Okay. There are free classes. LinkedIn Learning has a free access via the libraries. Many of the library systems, I think they have it in Montgomery County. They may have it in Prince George's. Um, Students get it for free here on campus, but once you're off campus, you can either pay for it or you can go to the county libraries. But that's where you can hone a skill and say that you were involved in learning something. See where you might be able to learn, you can put on there that you were involved in teaching yourself Excel, because you realize that that was something that kept coming up for project management. I realized I needed to know more about spreadsheets. And so, I took this LinkedIn learning class, or I went to Coursera, Coursera, Coursera.com, and I was able to find a class there that was relatively cheap. Most of them are cheap. So look for those opportunities. And I'm looking, will the recording be made public? Yes, it will be. We will send this out to you. And the slides. Yeah. So you'll hear my voice and you'll see the slides.
And there's a question about the difference between a master resume and a CV. And I've included a link to the guide to creating a CV. And if you want to explain how a CV is different than like that master resume that you've been talking.
Sure. A CV, you'll hear that, especially for people who are trying to get a position in academia. CVs are very academic related, because you're going to have in a CV, first of all, it's going to be more than one page. It might be 3 pages, but it still should not be overly long. What you're going to have on a CV includes publications, presentations that you've had, research projects. Many people who are doing CVs are doctoral students or master's students, but especially the doctoral students. So you might have served as a teaching assistant. So you're going to have teaching experience on there. And that's the main thing that's going to be very, very different. You're really showing your breadth of and work within the university structure.
We have a question from Maggie. How would you explain that during the gap, you've been supporting your special needs child with their online school program? And this is a great example for just other family responsibilities or different life events that may happen to explain a gap in employment.
And you said helping your special needs
Child with their online school.
Sure. I think one of the things is that we tend to take for granted a working parent to begin with, special needs or not, but especially those who have special needs, your involvement with researching, and these are the skills that you have, researching the special education requirements within a particular county, going to those IEP, and I'm thinking about this from personal experience with my daughter working with my grandson, going to these IEP meetings, the work that you have to put in beforehand in order to understand that. So a lot of it ends up being the research that you've done to be able to focus on and to be able to write what you need for your son or daughter, to be able to say that these are the needs that were met, these are the ones that were not met, but writing that up. And then for those that you had to do yourself, to be able to say that you spent X number of hours a day or X number of hours a week assisting this child with understanding. And here you might even speak specifically to whether it was understanding something that was more computational mathematical, or something that was more comprehension in terms of reading and spelling. And some of the resources that you identified, some of You can mention the groups that you identify to work with to assist you, or maybe you were the person, and if you weren't, maybe you can be that person who decides, you know what, I know there are more mothers out there like me. I'm going to reach out through whatever, Facebook or wherever, and say, I'm forming a small group, or it could be just your school, that I'm looking for other parents so that we can get together. So there you become the leader of helping to assist your family. Does that help? Does that make sense? I hope so. But it's a lot of work when you're working with children. And as I said, that special needs or not, if you are a parent, the balance of what you're trying to do is critical. And the research and the time that you put into it is important to be able to say to people. Well, it's not listed as a job. It's listed as, this is called, depending on the job you're applying to, it becomes either the relevant experience or the other experience. So to me, I like to refer to them as experiences versus jobs, because there's a tendency to say, well, a job is a paid thing, and unless I'm volunteering. So instead, it would just be that you were, maybe, how would we call it, an advocate? That could be a good one, to say that you were a special education advocate. And then to put some bullets that relate to that. Because in essence, that's what it is. And it could be at that point a an a different experience. But if you're applying for a job working in that field, it becomes a relevant experience. But what you are is an advocate.
Um, I wanted to share, Linda, that I'm pasting some resources, and this is from the University System of Maryland, so just larger than University of Maryland. They have a link for recently displaced federal workers. However, this is great for, these resources they've compiled are great for anyone looking for work in
Mhm.
Maryland or beyond. It's great ideas and support. And so
Yes.
I wanted you all to see this. One of the biggest areas where we're seeing need for employment and people are hiring is in our K through 12 systems in Maryland and beyond, states beyond. The state of Maryland has ways for people who don't have a teaching's license to get into the classroom and be hired as a teacher while gaining your Maryland teaching's license. So there are these programs that the state of Maryland is providing. And so if you have any interest at all in supporting students or being in the classroom, um, it doesn't matter if you don't have a teaching's license yet. It matters that you'd be willing to begin getting one while you're in the classroom. As long as you have a bachelor's degree and even master's and beyond, you could be eligible to be hired as a teacher in Maryland. And we actually next Wednesday have our Maryland Metro Education Expo, and we have 60 plus schools that are going to be on
Yeah.
campus. So for those of you that are in the area, you are more than welcome as alum to attend, speak with schools in Maryland and beyond. There's also nonprofits and other types of education related organizations who are hiring. But K through 12 is hiring really there. It's up, and they're needing people. So if it's something that
Very
you would be
strong.
interested in, it's a great opportunity for those who are looking for work. So just wanted to point that out, and that the fair
No.
is next Wednesday.
Yeah, I appreciate your mentioning that, because not only that, but just to remind them, can you just put in there, they should see it through their, if they don't have a handshake account, they need to get a handshake account.
Okay,
Handshake
yeah, let me add
is
some things.
our way of really coordinating the flow of information between employers and our students and alumni. And within that, you have not only job listings, but events as well as resources that are free to you. Some of the
So,
online resources that are free to you includes looking at things such as Vault, which is a way to identify industries of interest that you might have. A big interview, which is where you can practice interviewing. So there are quite a few in there. But the other is just to look if not only in Handshake, but also, and Sharina, can you put up the Career Center's website on there? The Career
Mhm.
Center website, in our events calendar, please look in preparation for, because we have a lot of things going on this month in particular, because we have a 3-day career fair. Thank you. At the end of the month. But leading up to it, we have a lot of preparation events that some are open to
Mhm.
alums, some are not, but you can see which ones are. But we're always throughout the semester, we have panels. Some of them are virtual, some of them are hybrid, to be able to let you hear from alumni, hear from employers that are open to you to come through to hear from. You can also look on the Alumni Association's website, and they have, if you haven't done this, I'm telling you, the expansion, besides this, it doesn't just happen this month. Okay, the association is working with you throughout the year. After you graduate, they work with a lot of students before they graduate, but after you graduate, the association is here for you. And so they have a lot of webinars. They have Terrapins Connect, which is like LinkedIn, except where LinkedIn might give you a 60% return on your reaching out to alumni and other people. The association's Terrapins Connect probably gives you about an 85 to 95% return. So when you reach out, those are alumni who are Terps who are saying, hey, reach out to me. I'd be glad to answer your questions. And you might say, can you tell me what it's like to work, as a consultant with the ABC company? Or how I saw your profile. Can you spend like 15 minutes? Maybe we can chat about your career and how you got to that, because they might have started out in one field and changed to another. And you can see that just by looking at their profiles. So get familiar with the Terrapins Connect. And by signing up for Terrapins Connect, you will get their monthly newsletter, which will tell you about free webinars that they have and other opportunities to continue to expand what's going on. So then when you go back to that earlier question about what have I been doing? What have I been doing? I have been growing professionally. That becomes more of an interview question. I've been growing professionally by taking advantage of a lot of the opportunities offered through the University of Maryland's Alumni Association and my Career Center, because it's just invaluable what we do. We don't like to leave you just stranded.
And in here, I've got the link to our website. I've also put in directions. So as an alum, some of you may remember Careers for Terps, which used to be our career management platform. In the fall of 2023, we moved to the Handshake platform, which is used by nearly 1,500 universities across the US. And it's got millions of employers on it. And so if you graduated May 2023 or more recently, you already have a Handshake account. You can go in with your directory ID and get logged in. If you graduated before May 2023, you can request an account by going into the account, and it'll walk you through requesting an account. Our team will confirm that you are indeed an alum, and you'll have an account created. And if you have any questions or need support during this process, put the email and phone number there. But that is the new
Absolutely.
career development that we have currently about 80,000 jobs posted on Handshake. And these are employers who are specifically looking for College Park graduates, right? So it's kind of like a LinkedIn, but it's targeted for the employers that are actually coming to our university specifically saying we want to hire students, recent graduates, and alumni. So that's a great event. And as Linda said, we have a lot of fairs coming up this February, March, and April. And just to remember that all fairs and recruiting events that the University Career Center puts on are open to our alumni at any time. There's
And not all of them are dealing with jobs. For instance, there's a health professions event that takes place in April where there are opportunities to hear from graduate school. So if you ever thought about going to a graduate school for a health profession, they're going to have numerous people in the Colony Ballroom to talk with you about that. In the fall, we do one for law schools. So there's always something that's out there for you to come to in order to continue to learn, to continue to grow. And that's the important thing. The other thing that I want to do, I want to definitely pitch to you is, and I hate to say it, but join the Alumni Association. There's so much that they're doing. It's not only the free stuff like the Terrapins Connect, but also they have affinity groups for very specific populations, for very specific majors. They have ones that are within the various counties, or if you were thinking about moving to Seattle, there's a Seattle group. But to find out, it used to be that these groups would only do football and basketball watching, but they all do so many things other than that to help to bring people together. So go there, volunteer, reach out to, you can get all that information off of their association's website. Find out who the contact people are and just reach out and say, I'd like to know what your next event is. But get involved, stay involved. And by doing so, you're going to be successful. Are there other questions? I think I'm losing some people, but I see a few people are still here. And I'm here for as long as you are. Do you have any other questions at this time? No? Well, believe me, it's been my pleasure always to talk with alumni like this and to provide this information to help you to get jump started